Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James, your host. I'm also the founder of stelliumastrology.com, and I used to write horoscopes for Elle magazine as well as a number of other publications. And today we are looking at the aspects. We're continuing with our series on the aspects. We've covered the hard aspects, the opposition and the square. The conjunction being a kind of mutual, not so hard aspect. And then we have now worked our way into the softer aspects. Last week discussing the trine, and this week we are discussing the sextile, which is related to the trine. So you may recognise some similarities when we talk about it. But before we get on to the trine, I just wanted to remind you guys that I've relaunched the podcast on YouTube. And that just means that all the episodes that I've recorded so far are going out on YouTube on another platform. So over the next few months, it's kind of tag teaming with this podcast. So all the latest episodes will be coming out here, but they're kind of having their moment again on YouTube. So oh dear, I've just had some lunch. I just had some potato salad, homemade potato salad, which was really delicious. And so if I start to get a bit of a tickle in my throat, it's because I've had food basically, and whenever I eat anything that's got a tiny weeny bit of fat in it, it just makes me tickly. I know I've told you that before. My tip for potato salad for anybody out there who loves it, I make it with mayonnaise, which you can buy vegan if you're a vegan, and I like to have a bit of whole grain mustard in there, and a little bit of chives, and a little bit of mint, and that just makes it amazing. So I love it. I could eat it till the cows come home. I could eat it till hell freezes over. Potato salad is one of my favourite things, especially when it's quite hot. It's one of those things you can batch cook and you can just leave it in the fridge and you can graze on it. Capricorns do love to graze. We're grazers. Anyway, I digress. Now, if you are interested in winning a Honeycomb Collective Diary, there's a link to the website to see what the Honeycomb Collective Diary looks like in the description. All you need to do to win that diary, or to win a reading with me, when I am able to fit you into my diary, and I will probably make a special exception if I can to the winner of this competition, is to go onto YouTube and sign up to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell, so that when I release a video you get a notification. Because as mentioned, this podcast is going out on YouTube, and I have had a YouTube channel for many years, but I started out doing astrology videos a long time ago. I think I had about 12 subscribers, and I kind of was like, I lived in a place where I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. It wasn't the right environment. I used to live in a music studio, above a music studio, and so I'd use one of the rooms that were available to go in and film, but the lighting was awful, the sound quality was awful, and it was a real education for me. I really learnt about what you need in order to, you need a good internet connection as well if you're going to do YouTube. So it was all of this stuff that was really, it was all a learning curve for me basically. So I kind of put out a few videos and then decided to stop, which is a shame, because if I'd have carried on, I'd have probably built a bit of momentum there, and maybe I'd have been a YouTuber instead of a podcaster, who knows. But yeah, actually, ultimately, it was not the right time for me. However, it is the right time now to start putting the podcast out there, and who knows, I might start doing videos as well. Who knows? But yeah, your support will be greatly appreciated and rewarded if you do happen to subscribe, and you get pulled out of the hat and you get to have a Honeycomb Collective Diary or a a reading with me. The Honeycomb Collective Diary is a personal astrological almanac. I have one myself. It's really amazing. It's a beautiful book. And when I got one for myself, I immediately knew I wanted to, do a prize draw and for somebody to win one of these diaries. But I didn't know what the prize draw would be for. But obviously now we've reached that point. Episode 50 of the Stellium Astrology podcast. Gosh, 50 episodes. Can you believe it? So that's it. So go sign up to my YouTube channel. My patrons, they get an extra entry just because. So if you happen to be a patron who hasn't signed up to the YouTube channel, then you will get one entry. But if you've signed up to the YouTube channel plus you're a patron, you just get two by default. So anyway, let's get on to talking about the sextile. Now, the sextile is an aspect which is identified by dividing the circle of the horoscope by 6. So actually, the sextile is half of a trine. So actually, a trine is 120 degrees and a sextile is 60 degrees. So any planet that's 60 degrees apart, give or take 4 degrees orb either side, is considered to be in a relationship with each other, which is a bit like the kind of the Jupiterian fortunate relationship of the trine, except the number 6 has associations with Venus, and this sextile aspect has a Venusian quality about it. So it's a nice aspect to have in the chart. If you have a chart full of sextiles and full of trines, it's quite a nice. You could look at that chart and go, oh, that's quite a nice natal chart to have. However, they can be aspects which we aren't always completely aware of, though the sextile is definitely a bit more in our consciousness than the trine is. The sextile does have an easy quality, and if it's, if the sextile is in sign, so if, it's like in the middle of a sign. So for example, my moon's at 15. So basically my moon is at like 16 Scorpio, and my sun is at 17 Capricorn. So almost like slap bang in the middle of those signs, and they are incompatible elements. So they have a very easy quality about them. So my my moon's in that fixed water and my sun's in that cardinal earth. They just kind of work nicely together. So it's quite an easy communication. They find it easy to talk to each other. And the thing about the sextile is that it's not as free-flowing as a trine. So it does require some attention and effort to engage. And one of the phrases that I've got written here is opportunity is a door marked push. And interestingly, with a sextile, it does present itself as an opportunity. And usually it's the type of opportunity that we look back and we regret if we didn't take it. I know that happens to me quite a lot. There's always these times in my life where I think, oh, I should have said yes to that, or I wish I'd done that. There are times when I just know I can't take on extra work and saying no is the only option, and I do it. It used to be difficult for me to say no to opportunities, but I try my best. In Sue Tompkins' book, Aspects in Astrology, she talks about the sextile on page 55, and she refers to an astrologer called Bill Tierney, who says that whilst squares push and trines allow or facilitate, sextiles coax. And I think this word coax is exactly the right word for the sextile aspect. So sextiles are, it's strange because if you think about Venus is a bit tempting. Venus attracts us with her feminine wiles. So there's a sense of temptation about Venus, which I guess that brings out, it coaxes. Venus, to attract, you have to coax something to be, to sort of be looking at you, to be intrigued by you. Makes me think of things like peacocks, for example, who, attract their mate, the male peacocks, or if you've ever seen anything in the animal kingdom where they're kind of trying to attract each other, it's either a dance, or they're flashing their feathers up, or there's some kind of weird mating ritual. But particularly with peacocks, it's the gorgeous tail feathers that, fan out and are just so beautiful and mesmerising, quite psychedelic really. To see that's how they attract their mate, and also how they kind of defend themselves when they're a little bit threatened. But it's a coaxing kind of attractive quality about the sextile, and it's often kind of, you have to kind of push yourself to take these opportunities. I can speak personally about sextiles because I do have a couple of sextiles in my chart. Like I said, I've got my sun and moon, which are sextile, and my sun and moon happen to be, when the sun and moon fall into that aspect, where they are about 60 degrees apart, or a little bit less, I believe that they're in what's called the balsamic phase. With that, I would say that I do have quite a harmonious relationship between my sun and moon, have quite an ease of communication with each other. Perhaps you can see it reflected in what I choose to do as my profession, with my sun being kind of my journey in life, being in Capricorn as well, wanting to be somebody who is taken seriously in what they do, and in communication with my 5th house Scorpio moon, which is a little bit witchy and a little bit into kind of these esoteric hobbies, and my sun is in the 8th house and my moon's in the 5th house as well, so it's quite a nice communication between the two of them. But you could describe it as, with the sextile, is a relationship between the parental roles in your life, the masculine and the feminine archetypes, having a good relationship with those. So perhaps not necessarily being for example, my mum and dad having quite a good relationship, and I think always being able to work through their issues and setting a good example of how to relate in a positive way. The other planets that I have in sextile to each other are Jupiter in Sagittarius and Mercury, Venus in Aquarius. And I didn't even know I had that aspect. It's so funny because sometimes you can look at your natal chart, and for a long time you can look at things and you can think you know your whole chart, and then somebody just points something out to you. And that somebody happened to be Richard Swatton. He said to me, "Oh, you've got a lovely Jupiter sextile to your Mercury and Venus." And I was like, "Do I?" I just hadn't even noticed it before, and I'd never thought about it. Jupiter happens to be the ruler of my descendant, and Mercury happens to be the ruler of my ascendant. So it means that those two planets in communication with each other bring a special type of relationship to my ascendant and descendant axis. And I have to say, I have never had a problem with finding relationships, meeting people, not just romantic relationships, but social relationships, business partners, that kind of thing. I tend to find it very easy to relate and communicate to other people. Maybe that's part of the gift of being an astrologer, because you can look at the chart and you can really I'm really able to empathise with other people. However, I think that it also adds a little bit of magic to meeting others, gives me that little moment, that maybe a sense of fate in meeting people, and also people that sometimes give me a little push. So whereas, the aspect which is described by the sextile is, that kind of opportunity is a door-marked push, and it's that coaxing aspect, there is also that sense that with that aspect for me, Mercury being my chart ruler, as it's my ruler of my ascendant, and Jupiter being the ruler of my descendant, that sometimes I give people a gentle push and sometimes they give me a gentle push in order for us to either work together or to get the best out of each other. One person I can think of as a great example of this is Frank Clifford, the principal of the London School of Astrology, who encouraged me to do my first ever astrology talk. And this was back in 2015, I think. And he said to me, he said, "Would you like to do a talk at the lodge in London?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet." And he went, oh, no, I mean, if you don't feel like you're ready, that's fine, but I just thought, I've got a few availabilities, and I thought that thought of you and a couple of other students, and I thought that maybe you might like to have a go. And I had said to myself that year, you know what, if opportunity knocks, I should say yes. It should be the year of yes. And as Frank said that to me, he did give me a little bit of a push by doing that. And that little push, I thought, I can't say no to this opportunity, I should say yes. And so I did. And it began a kind of series of, it was a big adventure that started for me. I started going all over the place doing talks, because not only did I love it, I realised that actually I'm okay at it. I can do it. It's something I can do, and I love sharing my ideas and that kind of thing. So the sextile can present, and depending on what planets are involved and where they are in your chart, it can describe a relationship between those areas of your life, and also areas where you might need a little bit of a push sometimes. It isn't completely I say subconscious. I don't know if the trine is really as subconscious as I'm making out, but definitely it doesn't make itself known, whereas the sextile does give you a little bit more of a push. So I think that that's quite interesting, and like I said, I can relate to that as well. So it would be really interesting for you guys to look in your chart and have a look and see if you've got any sextiles. Now again, it doesn't have to be a sextile as in like planet to planet. It could be like maybe a planet sextile your midheaven, a planet sextile your descendant, something like that. For a planet to be trine one of your nodes, it will automatically be sextile the other node, because the trine and the sextile added together, so 120 plus 60 gives you 180, which gives you the opposition. So any planets you've got in opposition, if you've got, say you were born on a full moon, you've got the sun and moon opposite each other, then if you've got something trine your sun, it automatically sextiles your moon. Obviously, as the sextile aspect is a lot smaller, the orb for the sextile is much smaller, so it's a 4-degree orb. There's the chance that it might not. And I do feel quite, as far as the orbs go with sextiles, I am quite stingy with it, and I do stick to the rules with that one. And so if it's not tight, I don't tend to grant it. But some people do, some people do. It's quite a nice, it's just a nice ease of communication. And like I said, it sort of pushes us to not necessarily step out of our comfort zone, but if we don't take up these opportunities, we can end up regretting them. So it's definitely worth having a look at your chart and seeing where you've got these nice little aspects, these nice little sextiles. But yeah, generally sextiles kind of indicate that we have some kind of aptitude for something. So where's the trine we would talk about having a gift for something and not being so consciously aware. I guess that gift or that aptitude that you have with the trine, with the sextile, is where we can push it a little bit more. So last week I was talking about the fact that I'm one of those people that can just play an instrument. I can just pick it up and play it, most of them anyway. And having thought about the fact that I have got a few sextiles in my chart, that may be part of what the aptitude with my sextiles are, because I wanted to get a guitar. Maybe if my mum had bought me a guitar when I said I wanted one, instead of just the fact is I think she kind of didn't realise I was going to actually sit down and learn how to play guitar when she said, I said I want an electric guitar for Christmas, and she said, well, you're going to have to learn how to play one then. I think she probably thought I'd lose interest and wouldn't be bothered, but instead that kind of encouraged me to go out and learn. Because what would I have done with a guitar if I didn't? Obviously I could have picked it up and started to learn, but like I said last week, it was pre-YouTube video tutorials and all of that sort of thing. So it wasn't like it is nowadays, where if you want to know something, you can find out at the drop of a hat. I had to go to the library, borrow a book, sit down and practice and practice and practice and practice. And anybody who can play guitar knows that when you first ever try and I had a steel strung, I think somebody lent me a guitar. I think my sister's boyfriend lent me a guitar Again, there you go, there's that ascendant descendant ruler in Sextile, the opportunity that I could borrow a guitar from my sister's boyfriend, and then actually, teach myself, which is a very Mercury Jupiter kind of communication between each other. And I sat down, and it says here in the in Sue's book, she says, sextiles have also been linked to rhythm and repetition, and thus with dancers and musicians, which also sounds rather Venusian. Certainly the sextile is an aspect of harmony, and planets linked by this kind of contact tend to cooperate with one another. So it's interesting that it's kind of associated with that, because I had the fortune of borrowing a guitar from somebody, borrowing a book from the library, sitting down, practicing. I think one of the first things I learned how to play was No Woman, No Cry by Bob Marley, and I also learned how to play Smelly Cat. So I sat down and I learned how to play guitar, and when I said to my mum, look, now I can play guitar, she was like, oh, okay. I'm going to actually have to suffer a loud electric guitar being played in my house all the time. And it's one of those funny things, because I guess this is whether the sextile and the trine kind of work together, because my mum coaxed me to learn more without realising. Maybe my sun moon sextile there speaking, mum being the moon, and maybe me and where I'm headed in life, to indulge in my hobbies and the passions in order to grow into my sun. But she inadvertently coaxed me into learning. And then when I got the electric guitar, all I played were the same songs over and 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 over again. Literally all I played, which would have driven anybody mad, except for me, who just was quite happy to keep playing the same songs over and over again. And eventually my mum came up and just said, you're going to have to learn some new songs. So I did. Not only did I do that, I thought, well, where can I go to really immerse myself? What would a Scorpio moon do? A Scorpio moon's going to immerse herself in her passions and her hobbies. A fifth house Scorpio moon doesn't just have a hobby; it becomes their every momentary breath and thought. So I got myself a job. I picked up the Yellow Pages. Anybody listening in the UK? Flashback to pre-internet. I mean, how old was I? Yeah, it was pre-internet. I think it was anyway. It was around internet discovery times, I think, that I did all of this. The internet may have been in its real infancy at this time, but I picked up the Yellow Pages and opened it on a few pages looking for music shops, and I saw Rock Bottom in Croydon, and I thought, oh, I know Rock Bottom. Which is a music shop, instrument shop. And I called up and said, do you have any vacancies? And they invited me for an interview, because this is how easy it was back then. And I turned up and they gave me the job. So I got a job working in a music shop, surrounded by guitarists and drummers and bassists and keyboard players, and even found out that my ex-boyfriend, who I was with for about 10 years, who was in a successful grunge band in America, used to rehearse at Rock Bottom, and our paths didn't cross actually, which was really funny, but the fact that he was going there at the time as well. So it was really quite interesting, and maybe slightly digressing, but this stuff wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been pushed to try a bit harder. And like I said, with music and with hobbies, with instruments, I could just kind of pick them up and practice and play and then just do it by ear. So I didn't really have much pushing me to try harder. And maybe if I'd have made it everything that I did and didn't try and pursue other areas of interest like a Gemini Ascendant would, then maybe I would have had a bit more of a musically focused direction in life. But I didn't decide to run with that baton. I decided to just be a bit of a floundering fish and do my sort of social Aquarius stellium instead. And I didn't really focus in on one particular area. So the curse of the Gemini Ascendant, really. However, it's good to recognise these kind of the way that these things manifest natally. But if you happen to have a transit where a sextile is appearing for you in your natal chart. So it could be that at one point, you know, in the months, the moon and Venus come together to make a sextile to your midheaven, and that passes in, you know, with the moon it will pass in the same day. You know, you'll have a few hours of opportunity, like the window of opportunity is small, whereas with Venus passing, you'll probably have, you know, a few days where there's a window of opportunity. And this kind of aspect may present as an opportunity to ask for a pay rise, or it could be that somebody comes to you with a job offer, and, you know, you don't necessarily recognise the value in that until the window has passed, the window of opportunity has passed. I think Frank Clifford told me that he had somebody contacted him to do a horoscope column, and I think he had 2 offers to write 2 different horoscope columns, and he looked at the chart of the moment and saw that there was a sextile. I don't know which planet was, but a sextile to his midheaven, and he thought, I'm going to say yes to this. And he ended up writing both of those horoscope columns for about 10 years. And it's one of those things that if he hadn't have said yes, he may not have had that opportunity again. I'm sure he probably would, but you know, there's these moments that pass that you think, gosh, imagine if I'd have said no to that. You know, it's just one of those little moments. And, you know, just for some imagery for you, I thought you might like to get into some imagery. For me, the sextile is a little bit like that moment when you're living indoors and a bit of light comes through the window. I don't know if anybody's ever seen what cats are like, but if there's a little bit of light on the floor, they tend to sit inside it a little bit. It's like a bit of a box of light and heat that they go and sit in, but that moves across the floor and sometimes it gets obscured by a cloud. So to me, the sextile is that moment where the light appears on the floor and the cat just rushes over to it to enjoy it. It's that recognising that moment where you can have, yes, a little bit of heat, yes, a little bit of sunshine. The other moment that I think that represents the sextile quite well is that film Sliding Doors, if anybody's seen that. Oh gosh, it's so old now. Gwyneth Paltrow, and there's a moment in the film, it shows her life running, 2 timelines running simultaneously, and it all comes back to this one moment where she just missed the tube, or the subway. You know, she got to the subway doors and they closed in front of her, and in one reality she just stood there and went, oh, I've missed it. And then the other reality, she forces the doors open and jumps on the tube, which if you've ever travelled on the tube in London, a lot of people can't stand it when people do that. I've actually happened to previously been shutting the doors on the tube by accident when it was a hot day and I was wearing a white top and I had 2 black stripes down my arm. Didn't even notice. I had my headphones in and I just like nonchalantly strolled onto the tube and the doors shut on me. That'll teach me for listening to my headphones so loud and not paying attention to my surroundings. And then I was covered in these greasy black stripes on my arms and it got onto my lovely white top. But yeah, so that could have very well been another moment. It's just those moments, those little fated moments sometimes, you know, where you just think my life could have gone in a different direction. And you know, I'm going to say, like on Sliding Doors, in the first reality where she missed the tube and had to wait for the next one, she got home and her partner was at home and writing his book that he's been writing for ages while she financially supports him. In the reality where she gets on the tube, she gets home to find her partner cheating on her. And it's that moment that sort of splits her timeline. You know, it's that moment of, you know, if I hadn't have got that tube, I would never have got home and found him. We wouldn't have broken up. I wouldn't have pursued doing something that makes me truly happy. And ultimately, I may not have met another person in my life who could have been a really positive, you know, connection for me and leading me down a path of true happiness. You know, it's that kind of thing. So I love Sliding Doors for the kind of symbol of the sextile. So that's kind of that. Now, the subscriber chart that I wanted to talk about is a client of mine who came for a reading with me back in 2019, and then came back for a reading with me literally at the end of May. In fact, she was my last client that I had booked in before the booking calendar closed down. And I'm talking about Ava. We've talked about Ava before on the podcast, but I had to talk about her again because she has got a 28 degree Virgo ascendant, and she has Venus sextile her ascendant. So she has Venus in her 10th house in Cancer, and she has a lovely Cancer stellium. She has Venus, Sun, Mars and Mercury and her North Node all up there in the 10th house, all of them all sort of crunched in together. And she has also got her midheaven at 28 Gemini, so her midheaven and her ascendant are square with each other, which is often the case with people who have usually Virgo rising. A lot of people with a Gemini midheaven also tend to have, not always, I just see this a lot. I see a lot of Virgo risings and Gemini midheavens. But yeah, so she's got this really nice little sextile between Venus and her ascendant, and Venus rules her 2nd house, which is of like self-worth and accumulation of wealth, and financial situation can be represented, but also her own personal value system. So not just wealth and things of value, but also her own personal values and what she kind of values higher than other things, or I kind of call it the house of priorities, because the things that you value the most are the things you're going to prioritise. So she's got that going on. Venus also rules her 9th house of broadcasting and wider networks and overseas travel and that kind of thing, like new experiences that broaden the horizons, teaching and higher education, universities. Now, I know that she didn't decide to go down that route and go to university because when she came to me for her first reading back in 2019, she was starting to get into more sort of spirituality and esoteric fields. And I had a look at her chart. We did a solar arc directed chart, and which I talk about solar arc directions with Frank Clifford in some episodes to come that are not being published just yet, by the way. I'm waiting until I'm on my maternity leave to release that, but my patrons are going to get it first. With solar arc directions, they show sort of like moments in your lifetime that you can almost pinpoint dates. And she came back to me when she had her midheaven, her career point, moving over her sun in Cancer. And so this became a topical point for the whole reading, because I'd said to her originally in 2019, I think that you're going to really discover your career path. And I think it's going to be an esoteric route. I think that you're probably going to be, in doing either astrology or tarot or something like that, and really excelling, or at least that something comes along and shows you what you're supposed to be doing with your career. And she came back to tell me that over the pandemic and lockdown, she thought, I'll just set up a Twitter page, and I think I'll just just see what happens. And so she started doing tarot readings on Twitter, and she just gained momentum. Her following gained momentum, and she started off with she's obviously got a natural gift for it. Somebody with a Cancer stellium is very good at spotting niches and kind of understanding what it is that people want, and giving them what they want can lead to great things for Cancerians. And so having all of these planets sitting up there in the 10th house in Cancer is somebody who's obviously got a bit of natural business ability, or this ability to understand what people want and to be seen as an authority in what they do. A natural aptitude, I would say. And over lockdown, she had the time to put into it, and started gaining lots of followers. And now she is a professional tarot reader. She ended up gaining 80,000 followers. It just started getting out of hand. She started going viral. But I wouldn't say that that's just to do with Venus sextile the ascendant. I would also say that it's got something to do with the fact that she's got Venus sextile her Jupiter, her natal Saturn at 27 degrees Taurus. Saturn being, a kind of planet which crystallizes and brings things into like a tangible reality, makes things into a reality. And also in Taurus, the sign of building and, generating real results, laying foundations and building on top of those foundations. And, Venus rules Taurus as well. So Saturn is communicating with Venus being the planet that rules the sign that he's in. So she's got these two really lovely sextiles in her chart. And it just so happened that during the pandemic, we had Saturn moving towards, it went into Aquarius for a little while and then went retrograde and came back out again. But during that whole period of time, Saturn was making a trine aspect to her natal Saturn. So he was helping her along her way and giving her the natural kind of push that a trine can give, that natural flow of fortune, that very Jupiterian and very almost just in the right place at the right time kind of aspect with the trine. And then Saturn and Jupiter got involved as well. And basically she had, if anybody remembers me talking about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happened at 0 Aquarius, well, this happened to be slap bang in between by trine Ava's Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, which happened to sit at 27 Taurus and 2 degrees of Gemini. So she had that aspect feeding into her natal placements for Jupiter and Saturn by trine as well. So she had this really nice flowing, she went with what felt right, she trusted, and she, got this lovely intuitive opportunity, and she used the opportunity, that planet that Saturn, Saturn was being communicated with by trine, by Saturn in transit, and she used that opportunistic, fortunate sextile that she has in her natal chart, which has Saturn and Venus in communication, and did something that she loved, something that made her feel happy, something that made her feel fulfilled. And Saturn, by the way, rules her 5th house of hobbies and passions, and really she was really able to channel that time in a productive way. Some people might have thought, I'll set it up, I'll do it another time, I'll just wait and see what happens, and wouldn't have taken the opportunity. But somebody with a lot of cardinality in their chart is going to want to get results, wants to be productive, wants to be doing things, and having that positive flowing trine energy from Saturn and from Jupiter. And let's not forget that Pluto is about to move into aspect as well in that area. I can only see that she's going to explode with followers and get more and more. So I just had to talk about her because I just thought it was such a great example of how, having something natally, if you are prepared to do a little bit of work with it, it can really manifest in a really positive way. And for her, it was, almost effortless, because she made sure she was doing something that she enjoyed. It fulfilled her, it made her happy. So yeah, I just thought that you guys would find that really interesting. And she also happens to have Moon in Scorpio, which is trine lots of her 10th house Cancer planets, and she's got Mercury at 12 Cancer, Mars at 15, Sun at 18. So she's got her Moon in Scorpio in the 2nd house, again with a Taurian kind of feel about it, because the 2nd house is kind of associated with that kind of Taurian quality of building, laying foundations, and producing tangible results, and that earning ability. So it was really nice to see that her moon was kind of playing a really helpful role in that as well, by speaking to her stellium by trine. So I just thought that was really interesting, and I hope you agree that for one of my clients to go away I can't lie, I was jealous. I was like, how on earth did she do that? I need to teach. She needs to teach me her secrets. So somebody that I picked that I thought was good, a celebrity, I thought would be a good one to talk about as far as having sextiles in their natal chart, is Venus Williams, and she is a professional tennis player, and she is quoted to say a lot of things. So just for me, just to point out all the sextiles I can see in her chart. So she's got Saturn sextile Uranus, she's got Mars, so she's got Saturn sextile Mercury, she's got Mars sextile her midheaven, she's got her midheaven sextile Chiron, it looks like she's got her moon sextile her sun. She's got loads of sextiles. She's really interesting. Oh, she's got Pluto sextile Neptune. So she's got loads of like really nice sextiles, and she's also got a couple of trines as well. So she's got what looks like Sun trine Pluto, or Venus trine Pluto as well. Yeah, quite powerful. It's a very powerful chart. So she's got Libra rising, Moon in Leo, and Sun in Gemini, and she's born on the 17th of June 1980, Linwood, California, at 14:12 PDT. What's PDT? Pacific Daytime? I don't know. Either way, her birth chart is rated as a AA that we can trust. And she, one of the things that you see with tennis players, it's very mercurial. And it's interesting that, she's got Mercury up there on her midheaven. So Mercury at 20, her midheaven at 14, both in Cancer. And she is known for playing the mercurial sport of tennis. She's also quite well known as being a famous sister, because it's, Venus and Serena. She's I think, what does it say here? I always like to win, but I'm the big sister. I want to make sure she has everything, even if I don't have anything. It's hard. I love her too much. That's what counts. That's really nice. Very Sun Venus. And so Sun Venus in Gemini plus Mercury on the midheaven. There is going to be that sibling relationship there, that mercurial, always thinking of other people, that kind of interplay that you have through your relationships, your mercurial social relationships that you start to develop with your siblings. But what I thought was really nice was like the Sun Moon trine, the Sun Moon sextile, which kind of describes the encouragement that she got from her family. That was, she was pushed. Her dad did really push and encourage her and her sister to really develop themselves. But this is obviously something that he saw that they had a natural gift for playing tennis, so wanted to encourage that. There's the Mars, so the Saturn Mercury sextile. Look, here we go. Look, here we've got some more quotes to see. It wasn't like I was self-motivated. My dad started me. It was his dream before it was mine. You might be able to say that that's the Mercury Saturn sextile. You could say that that's the Sun Moon sextile. It's quite interesting to sort of see that, she recognises that as well. But she's very competitive. So she has got Mars sextile Mercury, and that's that Mars Saturn conjunction sextile her Mercury and midheaven, saying if you're not a competitor, you've just got to go home. So she's obviously very competitive. But I just thought she had a great chart as far as the sextiles count. She's not just known for, like somebody with Mercury on the midheaven is going to be known for doing more than one thing. And she got very into fashion and design. I think that both the girls did, didn't they? I think they both got into fashion, as you might expect from somebody with like a Sun-Venus conjunction. Cancer, the sign Cancer is also connected with fashion, because again, it's about recognising, these moments of opportunity when it comes to trends and, being that niche finder. But yeah, so they both, I think, got into fashion and design. But I think that Venus really got into interior design as well. So it says here something that she said, the principle of the design, the harmony, rhythm and balance are all the same with the interior and fashion design. It's interesting that she brings up harmony, rhythm and balance. Harmony being, linked to that kind of trine flowing aspect, and the sextile being half of that trine, but also talking about, as Sue said, that rhythm and repetition. And if you look at people playing tennis as well, there's a sort of dance about tennis as well. It is such a mercurial sport, and it's very not choreographed. I wouldn't say it's choreographed, but it's definitely there's a sense of flow, and I'd say for me personally, I think football is more choreographed in a sense. I look at football as ballet for men. There is a real drama about football, especially when they go tumbling over on the floor. What I'm talking about to my US listeners is soccer, not football as you know it, like not NFL. I'm talking about soccer. In the UK, it's massive. The NFL is getting bigger in the UK, but it's not as big as soccer. And it's just such drama with it all. It's just, yeah, it's men's ballet. That's what I think. But yeah, with tennis, it's definitely, and it's much more of a sport that both men and women can kind of both get really involved and really enjoy as well, which is interesting because football is very masculine dominated in the UK. When I went to the US and I saw the NFL, I was surprised with how many women were there and how the supporters, the fans, all sit jumbled up together. They, you have fans of the opposing teams kind of sitting with each other, and I couldn't believe it because in the UK everybody's segregated because there's all these like almost like turf wars with football in the UK. It's kind of silly, really. But anyway, I've kind of digressed. But anyway, Venus Williams, I thought she was great. Have a look at her chart. She's got lots of sextiles. She knows that she didn't necessarily push herself, and she was encouraged. And her dad sort of pushed her, and her sister have achieved great success. But yeah, I thought she was a really, really, really interesting chart to look at as far as sextiles are concerned. So that's kind of it. I think I'm going to wrap up this episode, and don't forget to sign up to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and be in for a chance with getting a Honeycomb collective diary, and and maybe coming for a reading with me. Remember, Patreons, you get an extra entry if you sign up to the YouTube channel. And next week I guess we'll either make a move onto minor aspects, or I think I'm trying to figure out how I want to do the minor aspects, because there's quite a few, and I think I might just do them all in one show, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. All right then, I'll speak to you later, you guys. Take care. Bye bye.